This is episode 9 of She Doesn't Know, where I talk about neuroscience, creative obsession, and a few questions for God. New pair of shoes, or even a car. You probably told yourself you bought it for the quality, the price, or because you needed it. But I'm here to tell you that you didn't actually make that choice. At least the rational, logical version of you didn't. Most of our decisions are made by a 5 million-year-old biological pilot that's living in the base of your skull. This is the reptilian brain. And I spent some time looking at the work of experts like Patrick Van Voigt, and the data is clear. Traditional marketing is a lie because it asks people what they want. And honestly, we have no idea what we want. We are not thinking machines that feel, we are feeling machines that think. And to understand how we are being influenced, I have to break down the 3 distinct selves. And these selves are living inside your brain. First, you have the neocortex, the new brain. This is your professor. It's analytical, it's slow, and it loves data. Then you have the middle brain, which handles your emotions and feelings. But sitting underneath both of them is the reptilian brain. This is the oldest part of us, and it has only one job, and that's survival. It's fast, it's unconscious, and it's the ultimate decider. When you're standing in an aisle at a store, your neocortex is reading the ingredients, but your reptilian brain is the one that actually triggers the impulse to reach out and grab the bag of chips. It's the system 1 that overrides everything else. If I want to influence you, or if you want to understand how you're being influenced, you have to realize that the reptilian brain doesn't understand complex language. It's superficial because it has to be fast. I've identified 6 stimuli that trigger this. First is self-centered. It only cares about its own survival. Second is it craves contrast. It needs the before and after to understand the value. Third is needs things to be tangible. It hates abstractions. And fourth is it only remembers the beginning and the end of any kind of experience. Fifth is that it's incredibly visual. The optic nerve is 40 times faster than the auditory nerve. And finally, it's driven by emotion. If a message doesn't hit one of these 6 buttons, it's just noise that your brain filters out to save energy. So, how do we know this is happening? Because we've stopped asking people questions and started measuring their bodies. Using tools like facial coding to see micro expressions you don't even know that you are making. You can use eye tracking to see where your eye gaze lingers, and MRIs to see which part of your brain lights up when you see a logo or a design. We found that there is a literal buy button in the brain. Marketers use a 4-step process. They diagnose your brain with the signals of pain. They differentiate the claim so it stands out like a red apple in a blue pile. They demonstrate a gain when they deliver that message straight to your reptilian core. And it's not conversation, it's a biological hack. When I talk about the reptilian brain, I'm talking about the oldest part of our biology, and this part of our mind hasn't changed. Even in 1,000,000 years, it retains the same sort of thoughts, patterns, and core. Its primary concern is incredibly simple. Will this kill me or will this help me survive? This is the reptilian response. It's lightning fast, entirely unconscious, and it functions like a gatekeeper for everything we experience. Before marketing messages ever reaches your rational brain, the part of you that does the math or plans the future, it has to pass the lizard test. And I know that's a funny way to describe it, but if a message is too complex, too boring, or doesn't immediately address a personal pain, the reptilian brain simply ignores it. In our modern world, we often use superficial as an insult, but in a world of reptilian brains, superficiality is a survival strategy. This part of our brain is physically wired to the eyes. The optic nerve transmits information to the brain 40 times faster than the auditory nerve. This is why superficial elements like bold colors, high contrast imagery, before and after visuals are so devastatingly effective. The reptilian brain doesn't have the capacity for nuance. It lives in the binary world of black versus white, safe versus dangerous, fast versus slow. And when I say superficiality sells, I mean that the brain makes a choice based on visual appearances of value before logical minds can even begin to process the facts. This is why sleek, heavy bottle of perfume sells better than a plastic one, or even if the liquid inside is identical, it does not matter. The brain equates heavy and shiny with valuable and dominant. It is being shallow. It is being efficient. And for decades, marketing was a guessing game. We asked people what they liked in focus groups, and they lied to us, not because they were dishonest, but because they genuinely did not know why they made their choices. This is why neuromarketing is the absolute future of how we interact with the world. We are moving away from self-reporting and towards biometrics. The future isn't just about surveys. It's about tracking the dilation of your pupils, the electrical conducts of your skin, and the micro vibrations in your voice. By measuring these involuntary responses, we can finally bypass the liar in the neocortex and speak directly to the truth teller in the reptilian brain. But this goes far beyond selling soaps or cars. This science is the future of education, where we can design lessons that sync with a child's natural attention triggers. It's the future of public safety, where we can design roads that instinctively force drivers to slow down through visual illusions. We are finally learning to speak the native language of the human animal. Once we understand the buy button in the brain, we don't just become better marketeers. We become better architects of human behavior. I look back at the history of this field and realize we've spent decades trying to decode the human mind using the wrong tools. And for a long time, we relied on the survey model, assuming that if we asked people why they bought a product, they'd give us an honest answer. But the 2004 Pepsi Challenge fMRI study just blew that wide open. It showed us that while our taste buds might prefer one thing, our brains are actually hardwired to prioritize the identity and status associated with a brand like Coca-Cola. This was the birth of true neuromarketing. The realization that we are drawn to primitive branding because our brains are still programmed for the savannah and not the supermarket. We are instinctively attracted to animalistic cues, power and hunger and tribal belonging, and a clear hierarchy because those were the keys to survival for 5 million years. When you see brands like Nike or Apple, you aren't just seeing a logo, you are experiencing a biological hack. These brands use primitive symbols, and this is what I like to call totems, to bypass your rational neocortex and speak directly to your reptilian core. They use specific colors to trigger hunger or urgency, and sensory cues like the new car smell or the specific click of a high-end camera to create a Pavlovian response. This isn't just advertising, it is a form of brain training. Every time you get a dopamine hit from a limited time offer on Amazon, your brain is being conditioned to associate that brand with relief of avoiding a loss. We are essentially highly evolved animals in a suit. And the brands that understand our primitive buy button are the ones that will dominate the future. By measuring skin conduits and eye tracking instead of opinions, We've finally stopped guessing what people want and started seeing what their biology demands. Let's look at the two ends of the spectrum, Rolex and Google. On the surface, they couldn't be more different. One is a mechanical relic of the past, and the other is a digital gateway to the future. But on a biological level, they are using the exact same primitive hacks to colonize your brain. Take Rolex, for example. From a rational standpoint, Rolex is a terrible investment. Your phone tells the time more accurately for free, but a Rolex doesn't speak to your neocortex. It speaks to the dominance hierarchy. And this exists in your reptilian brain. In the animal kingdom, status is everything. It determines who eats first, who gets to mate, and Rolex uses primitive branding by positioning itself as a totem of the alpha. When you see that crown logo, your brain isn't thinking about gears, it's sensing a display of biological fitness. They use heavy, tangible materials like gold and steel because the reptilian brain equates physical weight with survival and significance. By sponsoring elite events like Wimbledon or Formula One, they train your brain to associate the brand with the top of the mountain. You aren't buying a watch, you are buying a signal to the rest of the tribe that you've conquered your environment. Now, let's look at Google. They use a completely different yet equally primitive hack, the search for information as a survival instinct. To our ancestors, information was about where the water was or where predators had meant that the difference between life and death was on the line. Our brains are hardwired to reward us with dopamine whenever we find resource. Google has branded itself as the infinite resource. Their superficial design is vast, white homepages with a single box. This is a masterclass in neuromarketing. It eliminates cognitive load by telling us that we know the information. The shift marks the end of a guessing era and a beginning of the biological era. As we move forward, the line between marketing and neuroscience will continue to blur, turning every storefront app and interface into a precision-engineered stimulus designed for our instinctual buy button. But there is a power in this awareness. Once you recognize your reptilian pilot, then you can steer it by colors, icons, clever nudges, and you gain the experience and ability to grab controls. Understanding our primitive nature is the first step towards rising above it, allowing us to build a future where we use these powerful hacks not just to sell more, but to live better, to drive safer, to communicate more authentically with the animal inside us.